This is the Biz News Podcast, one-on-one conversations with experts in business and personal development.
Chris Kolenda went for a bike ride this fall, but it wasn't your ordinary around-the-block kind of ride. Before he was finished, the retired Army colonel had ridden about 1,700 miles from Nebraska to Virginia and Arlington National Cemetery. It was his way of honoring 6 men under his command who were killed in the Afghanistan war and raise funds for his unit's 800 veterans and their families. He also says it was to highlight the continuing problem of suicide among military veterans. Chris Kolenda joins us for this Biz News interview. Well, Chris, you're a bit of a bike rider, and for people who ride bikes, you might spend Saturday afternoon or Sunday, something like that, tooling around a park, but you've done a little bit more than that. Would you tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about your most recent and lengthy bike ride?
Sure. Thanks, Doug. I appreciate you having me on your show to talk a little bit about the honor ride. I undertook a 1,700-mile bicycle ride to visit the graves of these 6 paratroopers from our unit who were killed in action in Afghanistan back in 2007, and to raise support for the 800 survivors and their families who need help.
And why did you do that? What motivated you to do that? Most people would write a check.
Yeah, well, I mean, these people had my back for 15 months in Afghanistan. I mean, the 6 who died during our deployment they were serving in places I asked them to serve, and they were doing things I asked them to do. And we're coming up on 15 years, and I wanted to do something significant to honor their service and sacrifice. And so I thought, well, I could drive to visit their graves. That just didn't seem substantial enough to me. I'm physically capable of walking the 1,700 miles, but that would just take way too long. So I said, I know what I could do. I bet I could ride a bicycle 1,700 miles. And the only problems were I didn't own a bicycle and I hadn't ridden a bike in 20 years. So, I did what you do when you want to accomplish a big goal. I invested in some really nice road bike. I hired a cycling coach to get my butt in shape, and then I started telling people so I don't chicken out. So that was I trained for about 18 months, over 10,000 miles, and then I thought, maybe we could do some good with this to help the 800 survivors and their families who need it, and so that's why we created the Saber 6 Foundation, to help our paratroopers and their families, and to raise awareness about veterans' mental health, and and how we help people bounce back stronger.
There are certainly some surprising statistics about the casualties from the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. How many were killed in battle, and how many have subsequently died by suicide? Do you have those handy?
Right. 22 veterans die by suicide a day on average. We've lost over 7,000 service members to the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq in the past 20 years. Over that same period, over 30,000 have died by suicide. Within our own group of 800, we've now lost more to suicide and overdoses than to enemy fire. And I've got one guy, who he's one of our top 1% leaders, non-commissioned officers back in 2007 and 8 in that 15-month deployment. He now lives in a dumpster outside of a city library in Northern California, and he's a meth addict. He's one of several stories of people who are drifting downhill fast. Others are, they're approaching midlife crisis. There's this sort of deadly combination between post-traumatic stress, which we all have. You have it if you've gone through combat like that. Post-traumatic stress, midlife crisis, and drift. And that combination can be very, very deadly. And so for people like Justin, we want to help them get out of drift when he's ready to reforge his life. And for others to help them find new purpose and belonging so they don't get into drift and so that they can bounce back stronger and soar to new heights. So that's what this mission's all about.
And to take nothing away from what you have accomplished, the question we have in mind is why hasn't the Veterans Administration done more to assist veterans to avoid these problems?
The VA's come a long way, even in the 10 years since I've left the military. When I started using the VA, it's come a long ways. And the VA is the first sort of line of defense, if you will. When we look at how we're going to help our 800 paratroopers, the VA is the first line of defense. And so getting people enrolled in the VA, in the medical, VA medical program, getting people to see their primary care physician. I mean, all sorts of doors open up. Therapy is really important, and the VA offers that. It's important, but it's not sufficient. One of the things that we're finding is, it's this struggle for purpose and belonging. Veterans, there's a thing called the happiness curve. Psychologists talk about a happiness curve that's shaped like a U. At the top of the U on one side is about age 20. And the top of the U on the other side is about age 62, your early 60s. The bottom of the U is age 47. And so what happens is, most veterans who are in, most people who are in combat are 18 to 27 years old. So they're at the top of the happiness curve. They're sort of already predisposed to be, to be happy. You've also got this awesome sense of purpose. Like, I am defending my country against people who attacked us on September 11th. I'm defending my family. I'm defending our, way of life. And this tremendous sense of belonging. The person to my left and the person to my right, they get me. They've got my back, and I've got theirs. And then this feeling that you've got the entire sort of weight of the United States of America wanting you to be successful. That's an awesome feeling. And part of the reason why many combat veterans will look back on their time in combat, despite the heartache, despite the heartbreak and the hardship, as among the happiest days of their lives. It's also their first professional experience for many. And so then you leave that and you get outside and you think, man, it's just, it's not the same. That sense of purpose is just not the same. It just doesn't quite measure up. And, out here in society, people don't get me. I don't feel like anybody gets me. I don't feel like anybody's got my back. In some cases, I might feel like people are trying to stab me in it. And I don't feel like I belong. And you get this feeling of emptiness. And at the same time, you got this feeling of empty inside, you've got post-traumatic stress. It's like this glacier that moves through your life at a high rate of speed, and it changes you. Just like a glacier changes the terrain around it. This combat changes you. And those memories can be like a loud gong that are going off inside you. And you know what a gong sounds like in an empty room. It's really painful. And for some, all they want is that pain to go away. So I think this is part of what, we haven't, fully understood about what a lot of combat veterans go through. And so, the therapy can get you out of drift. You can only drift in one direction, and that's downhill. Therapy can help you get out of drift, but it won't keep you out. you need new purpose and belonging. And that's, that's what we're all about, helping our folks find.
Chris, as you rode across the country, what reaction were you getting? Did you have a big sign on your bike or something like that? Or a lead car with a megaphone going on? Here comes Chris.
Yeah, well, nothing quite like that. I had a support van, with, yeah, my videographers who were awesome, and we had, the Honor Ride and Saber Six Foundation, some of our sponsors on the van. Of course, I had my jersey with the names of our 6 paratroopers on the back and Fallen Hero Honor Ride on the front. I had 2 responses. One response was road rage. I had, I think in Iowa, I got the finger like 7 or 8 times. One time in Nebraska from somebody with Iowa plates. And then in Pennsylvania, oh my goodness, it was a Sunday. And yeah, I mean, I had people running me off the road. I had people yelling at me, screaming. And so that was
were you
one
on an
reaction.
interstate, Chris? Were you on an
No.
interstate or something
I
like
was
that?
on country roads. I had the same rights to roads to everybody else. But that, that's the 2 to 3% that just makes you really appreciate the 97 and 98% who are just hugely supportive. I would get, thumbs up, honks, people just cheering me on. And yeah, I remember going into Denison, Iowa. And in Denison, Iowa, we were staying at the Cobblestone Inn. And so I get to, across the Missouri River, I'm getting close to Denison. So I go to Google Maps like people do, and I punch in Cobblestone Inn, and I hit the first one that appears. So I'm thinking, man, I'm feeling really good. I'm kind of, cruising my way through Denison. I go down a pretty big hill and up another pretty big one to the inn. And so I get there. Yeah, I was like, man, that was a big uphill. And the person, the front desk person, walks out, and she's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And so I told her a little bit about what we're doing, and I said, "Yeah, I'm staying here tonight." She's like, "You sure about that?" I said, "Oh no." I said, "I think so. There wouldn't happen to be 2 cobblestone inns in Denison, would there?" She's like, "Well, yeah. As a matter of fact, there's one like 5 miles back." And sure enough, I was staying at that one. So I got some penalty miles in that day. But her name was Joan. And as we started talking a bit more, and I talked about things like the happiness curve and what veterans go through, she said, I had a loved one who is a Vietnam veteran, and I never could understand the struggles he was going through. And this helps me. I now have a language that helps me understand what people are going through. And so I think one of the challenges that we've had is we on the veteran side don't communicate very well with society about our experiences. There's this sort of expectation that veterans don't talk about their experiences. And then on the society part, we don't know how to ask veterans about their experiences. And so we say, "Thank you for your service." And then we run away, because we don't want to offend anybody or set off anything. And so we've lost the ability to communicate. And one of the things that I want to help do as a part of the Saber Six Foundation, part of raising awareness, is help give people a language that can bridge this gap that's developed between veterans and broader society.
Chris, how can our viewers and listeners help you in your mission?
Well, the easiest way is to go to our website. Honorride.us is the easiest one, or saber6foundation.com. And there are lots of ways to, you can see all the different ways to support us, through donations, through sharing our, our mission and what we're doing for our folks with others.
What would you like to add that we haven't not had a chance to talk about?
when I crossed when I crossed into Virginia, over a Memorial Bridge into Arlington National Cemetery, I just had this deep feeling of gratitude. Gratitude for all the support that we've gotten along the way from so many just donors and champions and well wishers, people who made this successful. Nobody does this alone. You do it because you've got a group of great people with you that are helping you be successful and wanting you to be your best. So I'm just so grateful for all of the people that helped me be successful on this endeavor, and gratitude that we are in a position where we can, I think, do some good, not only for the people who had my back for 15 months and their families, but also to help people, give people a language and a way to communicate between the veterans and society that we haven't had before.
You've been watching the Biz News Podcast. We welcome your input. Send your email to editor@biznews.com. Thanks for watching.